In this video, we're going to take you through the other options in Wordfence Security. This is the final section of what you can configure in the options in Wordfence Security. So there's just a few bits and pieces here that you can tidy up. The first option you can see is to whitelist IPs. So basically, if you had a particularly locked down website and you feel that it might cause even you as the user or the owner to have access to your website, you can very easily find out your IP. There's a ton of websites on the internet that can do that, or you can even do it through your internet service provider and so on. But let's just say that you had a theoretical IP of 175.22.33.29. If that was your IP address, you can put that in there, and then no matter what, any traffic coming from that IP will go around all the rules and you'll never have any problems accessing the website. Of course, you do need to be wary of this. Most internet service providers will not have static IP addresses, which is to say that every so often your router or your modem or whatever device you use to access the internet will actually get a new IP address. So that is the caveat when you're actually using this technique. But if you have a static IP address, or you're really good at keeping track of when it changes for some reason, then this can be a super viable option for you. The next option we have is to immediately block IPs that access these URLs. So in a lot of cases, attackers will try and access certain pages on your website, maybe ones that they shouldn't be accessing, maybe certain folders they shouldn't have access to. So let's just say, for instance, you had a page called admin.php. If someone's trying to access that particular URL, or even if it was just admin, maybe you've got a plugin that modifies your URLs for you, such as that, then you can use this. So if anyone's trying to access this URL, their IP address will be blocked from your website completely. The next option we can see here is to hide the WordPress version. Now, if you're not actually aware, when WordPress is generating pages for you in the URLs for certain bits and pieces of your website, and these will only really ever appear in the source code of your website and the dashboard and so on, it'll actually display the version number. So by hiding that version number, you get a little bit of extra security. The reality is it's still not terribly difficult to find out what version of WordPress you're running, but anything that makes the attacker's job harder is a good thing, so I'd probably recommend leaving that one on. The next setting is to hold anonymous comments using member emails for moderation. This means that any comments coming in from a user that has an account on your website but say may not be logged in or is using a different name, they'll actually be held for moderation, so that you'll need to go in and manually approve those comments. The next setting is to filter comments for malwares and phishing URLs. This is a really handy feature. Often a lot of comment spam across WordPress websites and even just across the internet in general. People try and promote malicious or malware or phishing service through those comments in the hope that someone might come along and actually click that. But that's also assuming that you would actually approve that comment anyway. But with this feature, that's something you need to worry a whole lot less about. Just below that, you can see we can check password strength on profile update. That means that using the rules we configured before regarding what particular user accounts need to have strong passwords, if they're trying to update their password in the WordPress dashboard on their user profile, they'll need to actually input a super strong password. They won't be allowed to update it without doing that. And just below this setting, we can see the option to participate in the real-time WordPress security network. Now, if you weren't actually aware of this at the moment, Wordfence Security does have a sort of a network behind it that monitors how sites with this plugin are going with regards to various attacks and so on. This helps them generate data, know more about the attacks, and be able to build a better plugin. So I definitely recommend leaving that one on. Then you can see the maximum memory Wordfence can use. It's currently set to 256 megabytes, which really that's hopefully going to be more than ample for most all websites. It is quite a large number though, so you may need to turn this up or even tweak it down a little bit, but that's going to depend on your server with your web host, so it's wise to contact them and find out how much actual RAM or memory that your server has access to. Next, we have the maximum execution time for each stage of the scan when it's running. I'd suggest leaving it to blank. That's the default. If you're finding that the scans are taking an extremely long time, or it's chewing up a great big deal of your server resources, then it may be worth tweaking this number down. It says it must be greater than 9, therefore 9 is the minimum. So perhaps you could start with 20 and then move it up or down as you require. Thereafter, you can see the update interval in seconds. 2 seconds is the default, and for most people the default's going to be fine. I mean, as it notes over there on the right, setting a higher number will reduce browser traffic, but also as a result of that it'll slow the start of the scans, live traffic and status updates. So only really tweak that if you need to do so. Then we get down to some of the slightly more technical options here. You can see you can choose to enable a debugging mode. It does note that it does increase your database's load because it's going to be writing data to the database on a semi-regular basis. So if you're having problems with the plugin itself or with the scans or anything like that, I'd suggest turning that on, and then at least you've got the data available so you can check to see what's going on with the plugin and hopefully nail down any issues that you may or may not have. Then you can see the next option is to delete Wordfence tables and data on deactivation, and that's because, as we mentioned just now, whether you're using debugging mode or not, the plugin needs to store information in the database. And for a lot of plugins, when you actually go and delete them, they'll still leave all of that data in your database, and maybe down the line you'll find that or you'll stumble across it and be like, what's this for? I'm a little confused. And it may not be immediately clear that it was from Wordfence. So we'd strongly suggest ticking this box, because in the instance that you do wish to uninstall the plugin, it's best to get rid of all the data regarding it. And hopefully if you do need to get that at some time, you've got some database backups from around the time that you had it anyway. You can next choose to disable cookies that are generated by Wordfence, and that just means that anytime a visitor hits your website, it will always be viewed as a new person, because there's actually no tracking mechanism in place without the cookies being enabled. Probably wouldn't be turning that on myself, as it may compromise the integrity of the data when I'm trying to figure out who's coming to my site, where they're coming from, are they a new visitor, an old visitor, and so on. Next, you can choose to start all scans remotely. So if you're having problems starting the scan, or not all of your scans are starting from within your website, this just allows the Wordfence servers to ping your website basically, and that'll kick the scan off for you. So this is a sort of feature that you'd only really need to enable in the instance that your scans weren't starting and you knew that. You can come and try this as a method of getting around that. Finally, we have the ability to add debugging comments to the HTML source of cached pages. This just means that whenever you load a page and say it's a cached page, you can go in and view the source of that page, and it will give you some information such as how long it took to build the cached page and where in particular it lives on your web server. I think that's really handy to turn on anyway, especially in the instance that you do start to see maybe some inconsistencies on your website or any problems. You can always rely on that little comment to go and give you that little bit of information you wouldn't have had otherwise. When you're done making any changes here, always make sure you hit Save Changes. Otherwise, if you have any questions about what we've done today, please feel free to ask in the comments below.